Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our steering committee meeting for the month of February. Today is February 16th, 2023. It's a little after 11, and we're meeting virtually. I think we now have a quorum. Maya just showed up. Anyway, before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. So welcome, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And the first item up is the Justice Project. We have quite a bit to talk about today. I'm going to start out just kind of giving you the big picture view of where we're headed. Stakeholder Advisory Committee phase has wrapped. We issued the report to the council last meeting on the 7th. They took it in. We got great comments back. They will be looking at a resolution next week on the 21st during Committee of the Whole in the afternoon to both it'll be a kind of a work session. They'll be able to ask questions and things about the needs assessment report itself, and so we'll go over that with them on the afternoon meeting. And then in the evening they'll be considering a resolution to accept the report, as well as to look at some factors on our implementation phase, which is the next phase, which is the one we're in now. It's going to involve the IPRTF as it did during the SAC process. We benefited greatly from having the task force connected to the effort and all the work the subcommittees did on work sessions. So the council is going to vote to assign that work to the task force for the implementation phase. It'll be a series of workshops that we'll encounter in the month of March. And I'm going to let Jill and Kathy kind of explain some of the details around that.
Hi, everyone. Kathy, feel free to jump in and join me here as you're the runner of this. So the implementation phase workshops will be special task force meetings throughout March. It's going to be a heavy schedule, and we're looking at Thursday morning meetings, special meetings for a couple of hours. Starting on, let me grab my schedule here. Kathy, is it March 9th?
Yes, starting on March 9th. There'll be one on March 16th, March 23rd, March 30th. And then the last workshop would be on April 6th. And these would cover the topics that the needs assessment recommendations covered, and those are systems, services, facilities, and then an additional topic would be funding approach. And the overall idea of the workshops is to identify specific projects in response to the needs and recommendations identified in the needs assessment. I'm sorry, I jumped in and explained, Jill. I don't know if you had other things you wanted to add about those workshops.
No, that's perfect. So I think the question before Kathy and I right now is whether or not that Thursday morning time slot is going to work for everyone. We're going to send out an email letting folks know what we're planning. Kathy, have we heard from Marty and Holly yet about that Thursday morning, if that works for them?
Yes, I believe the preferred time would be to block off 2.5 hours, that it would be from 9:30 to 12.
Great, thank you. So if that's going to be the tentative schedule, then we'll let everyone know and then start setting up these special task force meetings. You'll get Outlook invitations and Zoom links, etc., throughout March. If we go with that Thursday time slot, we will need to schedule the steering committee, this meeting, the March meeting, at a different time. Probably maybe later in the afternoon, if y'all can do that, since the two meetings will, the workshop will conflict with the steering committee in March. Stephen?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, if anybody doesn't understand why these are special IPRTF meetings, it's because a quorum of the IPRTF are also members of the SAC. And so it would violate the Open Public Meetings Act if we didn't have the notice and the special meeting procedures involved, because if all of those showed up, we would need to follow a state law for that purpose.
Be clear, this is not a SAC meeting, though. Is that?
No, I know,
Right.
but okay. A quorum of the IPRTF are invitees to these meetings.
Yeah.
Right. The core team identified through the planning folks happens to be a quorum of the IPRTF.
So we went around and round on the quorum thing, and Jill and I talked a little earlier. We decided not, it's not that big a deal for us to notice these meetings. So, we just decided to notice everything and be careful. So anyway, check your inboxes in the near future. You'll be getting invites to these workshops. And thank you in advance for the work you're going to do. And thank you for all the work you did during the last year in the stakeholder advisory process. It was just awesome. And let's continue that. We have some momentum behind us. Let's get a great implementation plan done. And we'll bring this baby home. So.
I just, on the Thursday morning schedule, Perry, I know Health Department has regular staff meetings weekly on Wednesdays. Is that correct? I think that's why we finally chose on Thursdays, is not to conflict with that.
I was checking, Jill, and I think that it'll work for me. I just kind of depending. I will certainly pay attention to that, but I also obviously want to support this work, and so I can probably get updates from my colleagues in the Response Systems Division in regard to those staff meetings.
Okay, fantastic. And just to let you know that there are some individuals identified that can help out with this process that are outside of the task force, that are not members of the task force. They will also be invited. A number of individuals from the cities and the small cities and some of our other departments will be invited to join and participate as well. Kathy?
Thank you. I just wanted to add that in addition to the workshops, there may be some pre-workshop activities that you can participate in remotely and on your own time to share your ideas in advance of the meeting. And then during the meeting, the whole group would look at all of the shared ideas together so that we're not starting from scratch and that we have compiled some of those project recommendations in advance.
Yeah, just to give you a little flavor of what will happen after the workshops are completed in March, there'll be focus groups that will and a town hall that will happen in the April timeframe, April, May, to be able to take the work that was done with the workshops and kind of validate it out in the public. So we have an engagement plan to help do that. Anything else? Any other questions on the Justice Project?
I would say that it sounds, I'm not hearing any negative feedback about Thursday morning meetings. Can we go ahead and reschedule the March steering committee? Normally it begins at 11 to 12:30. If the workshop ends at noon, we might need to bump that back to the afternoon or pick another day for that? What do you guys want to do regarding the March steering committee meeting?
What's everybody feel like a long day? I mean, we need a little break for some food, but that would be a long day. I don't see anybody making faces, so
That's probably doable. We are talking about the 16th, is that right, Joe?
Yes, sure. No, March
think-
9th.
Yeah, I
March-
think it's the 9th, yep.
so if we get done at noon, let's maybe convene at 1 or 1:30.
Yeah, one would work. Or 1:30, either one.
Yeah.
Very, we have that North Sound BHASO board meeting on the 9th from 1:30 to 3 o'clock.
Yeah, that takes up all afternoon.
Isn't that on a Tuesday?
It's Thursdays.
So we can do a late afternoon steering or pick another day.
Friday? Or
Friday.
keep it earlier?
I can't do Friday.
How
I
about-
normally can do Friday. I can't do that Friday.
How about Wednesday?
Afternoons?
Wednesday afternoon, no problem.
Excellent.
I'm working.
What about afternoon of March 16th?
What day is that?
A Thursday.
Thursday? Yeah, that's fine.
It's
I
fine
need
here.
to be done by 2.
I'm in Nashville.
Oh, that's right.
Well, if you did it on Wednesday, what time would you do it?
Probably before probably in the morning. Can you do in the morning sometime?
Yeah. I could do the morning.
So Wednesday, March 8th in the morning?
I won't.
Raylene shaking her head.
No?
Okay.
I mean, you guys can go ahead. It's just, there's no way I can do a morning on a Wednesday.
You know, another option is the March meeting is going to be fully pyramid. That's going to be Pyramid's training session for the task force. It's going to take up most of the meeting. So if you, Barry, just don't want to have a steering committee in March, that's also an option. I won't need steering committee input to set the agenda.
You know, I'm wondering if there's, yeah, I agree with that, Jill. I just lost my little how to get back here. Sorry. What if we went for just a half an hour, like right after the workshop, if we absolutely needed to do something? And if
Okay.
not, then we could just cancel.
Okay,
And have a little flexibility, because we could just really make it short if we have to do anything, and then everybody can go off in their own way. That's just one option I was thinking of.
how does that sound for everyone? Thursday, March 9th from noon to 12:30?
If needed.
Needed, if needed. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, you guys. That's really helpful. That's all I have for that.
Anything else on it? It's a exciting time, a lot of work, busy stuff going on, and I'm glad everybody is enthusiastically on board. Thanks again. The next thing we're going to talk about is our IPTRF communications effort with Pyramid. And as Jill mentioned, there's going to be a training workshop next month. But we're going to just update you a little bit on everything that's going on. We are into the social media world. The task force now has a Facebook page. It's under the county umbrella, right, Jill? So we have a Facebook page. We're figuring out how to use it, both with just regular posting and the sponsored side. That's kind of the side we're working on right now to try to get some answers how we announce who pays for things and such when we do sponsored ads. So Jill, why don't you give us a little, anything else you can think of that's going on in Pyramid? We've got, op-eds going around. We have a local op-ed that's been drafted, and we have a state level op-ed that's been drafted. We looked at a whole bunch of great graphics and things yesterday that would be utilized in both, the Facebook world. They were great. They're doing really wonderful work for us. So, Jill?
Yes, thank you, Barry. We do have weekly check-in meetings with Pyramid that have been going fantastic. In your packet is the communications plan that we've all worked up, so you have that. We're at the point right now where Pyramid has developed 3 different types of content. As Barry mentioned, we've created a Facebook page. We haven't really done anything with it yet. There are 2 op-eds that will be going out, one to local media and one to statewide media. Those op-eds will be from Barry and Jack and Stephen as the chairs. And then there's also a set of emails that will be sent to our community partners from the task force email address. So I have all of that draft content. I will email it to everyone right after this meeting. You can take a look at it and see what the content and the messaging is. The plan is to really launch all of this media content, Facebook, everything next Tuesday. So Pyramid will, I don't know what their connections are in terms of the op-eds. They're going to be sending that out and working with their connections to get those published. They're also going to be publishing the content on our Facebook and also doing paid digital, which means paid ads on Facebook and Instagram. And that all that content I will send along as well. Part of that paid digital advertising is to do message testing to see how our messages are resonating with the community. So they're going to be looking at that, looking at those statistics. We've redone the task force web pages to make them a little more user-friendly. So the next few weeks we'll be starting to generate all that content and putting it out into the community, to the public, and to our partners to catch their attention about the work of the task force. Following that, towards the middle and end of March, we're going to move on to the last big task for Pyramid, which is their training sessions, which is they're going to come to the task force as a whole to do some high-level training on how to carry forward these communication responsibilities into the future. So this isn't just a one-time thing. So they'll be at the March task force meeting doing that kind of training. We're also going to have a special core team training in mid-March that's a little more in-depth, more of the technical stuff. So that's the summary. That's what's going on.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, and one of the cool things is they've done is knowing that we want to be able to do this in the future, like Jill just mentioned, they're making sure that the materials that they're generating are accompanied with a template for us. So like a Facebook template that we could just use the visual breakdown, the graphic breakdown, and the text boxes and so on. So it's really exciting that we're going to be able to embark on this, on our own with some training and resources as well. So thank you, Jill.
I wonder if anybody saw the Cascadia layout. It was rather large and with a big graphic about Christensen's the 4 teams that are doing the intervention work. Did you all see that? It was like, I don't know, a week or 2 back, but it was a really good graphic. And it's a kind of PR that I'm hoping we'll be able to get.
The Pyramid team, I think all of us on the core planning team have found are extraordinarily collaborative. They really listen to us and adjust. They're really experienced professionally. They have a great facility with social media. and the analytics of social media. So they'll be able to target paid digital advertising to specific audiences. They'll be able to analyze how many people hit that page, how many people clicked on a link, how many people forwarded a message to somebody else. We're going to get a lot of information out of that.
Mhm.
So far, what I've learned about social media is WTF LOL, but other people are way ahead of me.
I know IMHO too. Okay, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, and the thing that, like Arlene, you mentioned a graphic. They even had a template that features just graphic, a graphic that you want to feature as your post. So they gave
Yeah,
us
because the average viewer is not into reading printed material, and if the printed material is very visual and brief, it gets in, it really goes in. And that's what we want. We want people to have a feeling about what we're doing or what we have done. In that case, it was really the programs that we've already done and started, which was, I thought it was terrific. And did the health department put that out, or Barry?
You know, I'm not certain about that. We certainly have a communications team that is really well
Okay.
developed. So that may be a possibility that they were involved with some of that.
Yeah, it was very hopeful.
Arlene, could you send us a link to that? Because
Oh,
it doesn't
yeah,
look like
I will
everybody's
Yeah,
seen it.
please do. Please do
Yeah,
it.
I will. Yeah.
Raylene?
The one concern I had was on page 6, because I love Jill. I think she is a superstar and awesome, and she wears her cape very well. But on page 6, it says delivers feedback on social, email, op-eds, and paid content and assets. Is that her responding to comments on social media? Is that a full-time job that is, I mean, I want her to be able to do everything, but I don't want to not supply comment on social media and not have her be able to do all the other wonderful functions she does. Or is that something that is going to be doled out between her and other steering committee meetings? Is there a public information officer with the county that's going to be working on that? I mean, it seems like a really large task to respond back to social media. And is that something that we've thought about, considered? Am I just behind the 8 ball and didn't see this?
Yeah, so that item that you're looking at, Raylene, is actually already done. What that item refers to are the 3 sets of content that I mentioned, the op-eds, the email, and the social media content that Pyramid has already created. That line item is just for me to organize the feedback on that content from Stephen, Barry, and Jack, gather their critique of that content that Pyramid created and forward it on to them. So that item actually is already done. So no worries, but I appreciate your concern for my workload. That's awesome.
Raylene, we did discuss that the potential load of commenting on social media posts. And I think the end result was we didn't expect a lot of back and forth. It wasn't going to be set up that way.
Yeah, so when we set up the Facebook account, we made sure our IT department employed all of the profanity restrictions, for example, that kind of thing. So that shouldn't be happening. For this period, this next, what is it, 5 or 6 weeks that we're going to be doing, putting this content out, and then Pyramid will be message testing. Facebook commenting will be enabled because Pyramid will use that feedback from the public, from the community, in their analysis of their message testing. As we go forward in the future, generally, we will restrict commenting and just use Facebook as a way to put the information out there to the public. So I'm not interested in doing a lot of monitoring of public comments on the Facebook. We do have some county guidelines on how that's done, if it's allowed. So I do have, the rails that have been reviewed by legal counsel on how to handle that thing if it happens.
So this was the article in Cascadia. And that's how they laid out the graphic.
That's cool.
It's really strong, and the article was pretty good too.
Okay, anything else on the communications effort? All right, we'll move on to the composition of the steering committee. So where did we last land on that discussion, Jill?
I think I recall the discussion being, we'll have to put this off until the next meeting. I don't think it's really been discussed. Mike, this came from you, I think, yeah?
It did, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
So what I remember is Jill did a little bit of research in kind of to our charter, and we looked a little bit about the steering committee. And I think my observation was the steering committee has shifted and altered from its original purpose. What I remember when Jill did her research and shared that with the steering committee members is that we realized that kind of is more limited than our scope currently, the way we are acting. So I guess I see this as kind of now a twofold issue. I think if we are acting to some degree, and I think people are enjoying the way that the steering committee is operating, that it's more than just creating agendas. It's more than what Councilman Mann, I think, suggested when the steering committee was created, right? We might need to dot the I's and cross the T's and adjust the charter to such a degree to actually reflect what we're doing. So I see that as one topic of conversation, decision to be made by this group about do we officially change kind of our purpose to some degree and put it down on paper. To me, that almost seems to be more seminal and a place to start first than looking at composition of the steering committee. Because at this point, and Jill, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the activities that we are currently doing kind of exceed what I read when you shared that writing with us. So that just led me to think, well, maybe there's a process piece. It was putting the cart before the horse to some degree to look at the composition when we really need to look at the function and make sure that we're accurate. So I don't know, Barry and Stephen, if you all have that same take, or if my bringing this back up kind of rings that bell, and if you all agree, but that was a place that I am. And then second to that, I think obviously I'd be happy to brainstorm, and other committee members maybe as well, about what, given our official charter is and how we function, then what voices are missing. And I think that's where I started from. So I started from looking at this as more leadership evolving here, some conversations taking place only here, and then summaries of them taking place in the whole task force. So that has shifted over time. And if that is the case and continues to be the case, and this group decides to keep going that way, then I think it really matters who's in the room. And I would love to see, and I brought up, for example, I think one of my first points is I would love to see more law enforcement. So we don't just hang that. I mean, Caleb, I think, is our only official member, right? And he's there because he's an index committee lead as well, chair. But so that was one area that I looked at. The other one that I would say is, currently we only have Perry from the health department. That's a lot of weight on Perry. And the health department is one of our frequent places to either go to for information, to request information. So that's another. And the third is the public. We don't really have representation in this group by anybody with lived experience other than the people, steering committees that have shared that they have some background. So to me, that's a gaping kind of a hole, if you will, in our in the makeup and composition of this group, of having people that have actually maybe been through our criminal legal system and might be able to offer that. So that's kind of how I see it. There's kind of like two stages, and I'll offer that and then stop. And then Stephen, Barry, I'm curious what you all think about my take on that.
Can I just say right quickly, if any of you have your meeting packet for today, the information that I gathered is in that packet. On page 8 is the current steering committee charge. And that's what Mike is referring to. And also, Mike, just FYI, I'm going to speak up for Jack here. He is a person with lived experience in the criminal justice system, representative on the task force.
He is who I was thinking of, actually, those people that have just cared to share. But what we don't have, Jill, is we don't have a slated seat for that. And we haven't sought anybody in a different kind of income or professional category as well. So might be better to have more than just one. But Jack's amazing, and he's brought that lens, I think, several times and been really candid with that. Thanks.
Mike, I agree with everything you said. I just have one small disagreement and one comment. The fourth factor is look at the screen. And if we didn't have Chief Tank sharing his time, not as a member of the steering committee, but participating with us, we wouldn't have any diversity at all on the membership of the steering committee. So I think that's another consideration besides the subgroups you've mentioned. And I don't see any reason why these need to be sequenced out. I think we could review the charter and look at those more representative kinds of compositions at the same time. Because I think they're almost as urgent as the scope of work that we're charged with.
Really?
Thank you. One thing that I think we have missing from a lot of our groups, including the steering committee, is somebody from the juvenile detention facilities as we look at law enforcement and corrections. And the kids kind of fall through the cracks on a lot of our issues. I mean, I've mentioned it before that there's not a special place for kids at the emergency room for the ICU, or not the ICU, but the mental health unit. And we don't have representation for them really throughout any of the committees that I've seen, and maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, I know that the health department is there, but they seem to kind of get lost in the shuffle. And if we don't start young, we're just going to continue to have more problems in the future.
The juvenile probation might be, I would submit maybe a better participant on that front.
Thank you.
My reaction, Raylene, is I'm not sure the steering committee composition is the place to find juvenile issues. One of the other actually programmatic subcommittees might be a better place to start untangling those issues, but that's just my off the cuff reaction to that.
I think Raylene, you're spot on. And the reason why I think that is in our behavioral health subcommittee, it's brought up and we don't do a good job. And I'm one of the co-chairs, so I could just cop to this my own. We don't do a good job covering juvenile issues in that group. And I think we can do far better. And I'm wondering if what Raylene is getting at is part of the reason that we need kind of a driver, somebody that really focuses on that. And I'm wondering what Perry would think, is there something from Child and Family Action Plan? Is there some kind of other group that having a stated person that can kind of be a go-between to some degree about, share what's going on in terms of that group in terms of its planning? I know that's Healthy Wacom or Child and Family Action Plan, or Perry, if you have any thoughts about that. But that's one thought that I had, and that person might help drive the bus to some degree in the incarceration task force on things juvenile and youth.
I really concur, Mike. I was thinking the exact same thing that, as that continues to develop, and probably communication with Erica Lautenbach, just in terms, she may have, the right person that she's thinking of. I'm not as connected to them as I would like to be. But I think that would be an excellent addition to the behavioral health subcommittee.
Really?
Stephen, to your point, maybe bringing somebody into both or some of the subcommittees, and then if that works out, then bringing them into the steering committee to add to that, so that You know, I mean, maybe we have to start outside in some of the subcommittees and bring somebody from juvenile probation and from youth services to behavioral health and look at expanding the subcommittees and then saying, okay, we need one of these representatives at the steering committee if we start outside. Thanks.
So I wonder, I'm trying to think of a process to get us really started in this. Mike, would you feel comfortable looking at the functional part of the what's in the packet right now and maybe suggest some revisions, and then we could get a starting point?
Happy to do that. Who would be best to share that with besides Jill? Just the whole group?
I think so. I think the whole group.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
And then maybe on the other side of the coin, all of us could think of what we're thinking of composition and just get some raw data into Jill. Send in your ideas on what, you know, what we think, what kind of diversity, what kind of populations we want to have, and just get a list going, and then we can discuss it at our next meeting. Stephen?
Just to close the loop on Raylene's response, I think there's a lot of merit in what she said about how to approach this. One of the questions I have is I've heard a number of times people articulate the fact that unfortunately the task force is limited to adults in its focus. I haven't been able to find a particular grounding in our charge in the assignment for the task force for that, but I think some people feel that's the case. So I think that would be the first clarification on the way we address youth issues in the criminal legal system is just clarifying that that is part of our scope of responsibility, which I think you could argue pretty well once we agreed to address preventive means more robustly than we had at the outset.
Yeah. Mike?
Two quick things. I really liked Maya's suggestion, and I don't want that to just go by the wayside. I'm wondering, Maya, if that person might be interested in joining, and I don't know if one of our subcommittees you think could be a good alignment, but to kind of try us out and to see what that might be like. We don't have any of that lens, I can tell you that much, brought into the behavioral health subcommittee. And I wonder if maybe that might be a path. And this is kind of a little bit along Raylene's hybrid idea about how we might bring somebody in. The second thought I have is, with the item that we just spoke about, we're probably going to have some increased interest. We hope to have a heck of a lot of increased interest. And if we can kind of re-cement the foundation, the steering, and kind of create whatever buckets that this group might think might be valuable, that could be a really powerful recruiting tool. We might have people coming to us or finding us through Facebook or getting involved in the Justice Project that want to get more involved, which could be a way too to kind of channel those folks into some of our committee structure, maybe with the idea that somebody ends up being in steering. So that was just a thought. If we get somebody really active, maybe we incorporate them.
So does that sound like a reasonable process going forward? We would have Mike draft some of the scope of the steering committee, and then all of us would send in our ideas to Jill. Jill, does that work for you, first of all?
Yes, that works for me.
Okay. So we'll do that, and then our next meeting is essentially probably going to be canceled in March, but we'll bring this back in April for sure. Anything else on the composition of the steering committee? Thank you, Mike, for volunteering to do this. I really appreciate it.
You bet. No, I'm happy to help. You can't bring up ideas and then not offer to help kind of take them out. I would just, the last thing I say, because Barry, I think you're going to transition out of here, and Stephen brought this up, but the whole reason that I even brought this up is the Garrett Toolkit. I view this as kind of a seminal, foundational, if you will, kind of move to look at like who's in the room. And I think the toolkit really charges us as a group look pretty hard at that. And then if we have shortcomings, that we work to address that, right? And just be really transparent about that. So I see lots of shortcomings. I see lots of room for improvement, just in representation, not necessarily thought, but in the representation. I think we can do a better job, and excited to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. Anything else on the topic? All right. Items for our next task force agenda. What do we have so far, Joe?
Justice Project, and that's it.
Nothing from Pyramid at the next meeting.
No.
So anybody have anything else they'd like to see on their agenda?
You mean the committee as a whole?
Yeah, the task force. Yeah.
Stephen, do you think there's a space in there, or a need or a desire to update the group on advocacy efforts and kind of process and thoughts going forward? Is that something that's germane to the entire group?
Yes, I do, both the content of what we've been focusing on and the process that has developed with the competency restoration work group intersection, and the agreement to look at the development of a legislative agenda earlier in the year with the county council and executive. I think all of that is relevant to the task force. Do you think you and Brian might introduce that report, Mike?
I can speak for myself. I'd be happy to, but I think it would be great to have Brian too, and we can tag team it.
Do you want to
Stephen,
contact? Do you want to
if we
contact?
might, yes, for sure. I don't mind doing that. Stephen, do you mind if we confer ahead of time, so we just kind of align our P's and Q's and think about our timing? I don't know how much time we're talking. I'm guessing brief, right? Because it's a pretty packed agenda. So how many minutes are you thinking?
Yeah, I defer to Jill a little bit on this, but I think it's sort of the 10 to 15 minute range.
10 minutes, something. Okay. Yeah, no problem. I'll reach out to Brian, and Stephen, we might reach out to you to just confer and just kind of align what our talking points are, or what do we think is the most germane, and then just to make sure that it's kind of matching all of our understandings too.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm a little out of the loop. What's this agenda item that you're asking for? An update on what group?
The legislative wish list that we've
Okay.
been talking, Representative Rule, Senator Shoemake, Barry, and as the council voice, and Tyler and Jed and the executive office.
And Representative Timmons. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And Erica was part of some of those conversations.
All right. Other ideas for the task force meeting? Perry, do we want to give a quick update on the competency restoration work? I know that's not, I know the task force didn't want to take that on as any kind of a task, but maybe we could update them just to let them know what's going on.
Certainly could, just in terms of, some of the agenda items, the discussion points, that sort of thing. I have no problem in compiling some of the information that I have and being prepared to do that. When is our task force meeting, Jill?
February 27th.
And as I have offered, nope, that'll be okay. I'll just be coming off a week's vacation, so I might be a little rusty, but I'd be more than happy to share that, Barry.
Okay, thanks, Barry. I appreciate that. Any other ideas for task force, February task force meeting? Okay, you got it, Jill.
Thank you.
All right, that's the end of our agenda. Do we have any other business anybody wants to bring up? Stephen?
I have a couple of things, Barry, and I'll try to be brief. One is I wanted to let the steering committee know that I was contacted by Eric Ritchie, letting me know, number one, that he has just been appointed to the State Reentry Council. And also by email, tag teaming, introduced me to the new executive director there, a woman named Janelle McFeet. And I invited her to maybe present what the council's forward-looking work would be, since reentry is one of the emphases of the Legal and Justice System Subcommittee and shows up on the SAC recommendations. She's neck deep in the legislative session right now, but we're going to touch base in a couple of weeks and try to schedule time for her to appear before the task force. I know we're packing agendas out in advance quite a bit, but somehow we'll try to fit her in. And I also flagged for Eric my desire that he maybe make some regular reports on that. And I think this might be an opportunity for us to articulate for Eric what interests, measures, and positions we might want to use him to push forward in state reentry work. Most of that is focused on the DOC. If you remember the presentation from the prior ED, Chris, what was his last name, Jill?
Ulos?
Yes. But there may be some program models or some connectivity between DOC reentry efforts and jail reentry efforts. So we have another foot in another forum looking at reentry issues, and I just wanted everybody to know that I'm trying to set that up to start educating and connecting for the task force. The second thing is I really applaud Mike for pushing the new thinking about the charge and the structure of the steering committee. We have similar issues on the task force as a whole, in my eyes, and I want to get that. I just want to plant a flag for that to be soon in coming steering committee agendas for us to start thinking about. We have a number of vacant positions, important vacant positions. We haven't had anybody from Peace Health attending a meeting for a long time. We haven't had anybody from either tribe. And there's some other positions that we thought were important enough to slot them into task force membership that we're not getting the traction that we need. And so I'd like for us to try to think through what to do about that situation. We also have an issue where Jack and I are both terming out as it stands now from membership on the task force. And therefore that potentially creates a leadership vacuum for the task force. There are a number of ways to go on both of those subjects, but I think that whole big picture of this task force membership composition and potential leadership issues are things we should talk about, and we should talk about them soon because there could be a lot to work through there.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, definitely. Anybody else? Tank, is there anything from law enforcement you'd like to let us know?
Well, actually, not particularly today. However, I will tell you that the recommendations brought forth by the SAC to the county council, there are many people out in the community that are reading that entire document. So there's a lot of encouragement and enthusiasm around that document. I've been talking to a good amount of people through all parts of the county, so there's a lot of interest.
Wow, thanks for that feedback. Really appreciate that.
Sure.
Even
And then
out of
also-
curiosity, oh, go ahead, Nat. Go ahead, Chief Tank.
Also, one thing I would like to recommend is on the main page, not the SAC page, but the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force, there's a tab called In the News or something like that. And it would be good to see the actual recommendations listed on that tab as well.
Yeah, thanks, Tank. I was gonna go ahead and add a link to the SAC and the needs assessment report on the task force webpage somewhere, so I can definitely do that.
Mike, do you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna inquire, Stephen, when do your and Jack's terms end?
I think our transition point is the January meeting.
January of 2024.
Yeah.
I'll just be super bold. Do you have interest in staying on? You'd think about it. That's
Yeah,
probably-
yeah, I do. I have some ambivalent feelings, but all in all, I'd be in favor of that. There's a county ordinance that limits terms, and Barry has suggested that had a sub-agenda behind it in the past. So it's not for me to think about what to do about that, but I just want us to all be aware of that and be talking about that.
Yeah, well, I know I have really appreciated your leadership on many fronts, Stephen, and your ability to do things outside of just the meeting times, I think is part of what is driving things further. So that's where that comes from. And then Barry, I do just have one good of the order.
Yeah.
Well,
go
Mike,
ahead.
I want to say thank you for that, and say that I'm aware of how much time I'm putting into this, and I'm able to do that and glad to do that because I'm retired. I think that limits the pool of candidates we have for that, because I think we need that kind of extra time, and so that's an issue for us to think about in terms of leadership. Sorry,
Yeah, go
Barry.
ahead. Mike?
A good of the order is just a shout out to Arlene. So Arlene, you have championed for years since I've been on here, you know, that the county or some entity create kind of a 24/7 center. And, you know, as Stephen and some others of I sat with the executive team on a legislative ask to create a center similar to that. Just kind of a shout out, because when I saw that, I thought, you know, who's been just banging that drum repeatedly? Miss Feld. So thank you for your bringing that up. Thank you for your tireless. You just don't give up. And you know what? What I found is that tenacity is really worth it, because it plants those seeds. So who knows whether we'll get this? This is all up to, and there's a lot of competing needs on funding. But I thought it was great to see that coming from, you know, Erica and team and Perry and others in the health department. And it kind of closely resembles that. So thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you for saying that. This is a very exciting time. Most recently, I heard that President Biden put forward funding that is aimed at young people, but so it's this funding, millions and millions of dollars, is going to bolster counseling resources in the school system. This is the preventative things that we've been talking about for oh so long. So the president is, as I've said before, he's got mental health on his list. He's got homelessness on his list. It's just not number one because he only has the whole world to think about. But what's exciting is that this is actually happening now. And one of the interns that I'm working with, supervising, she is a school counselor. And so she's talking to me about the work that she does in the school system and what her needs are for the parents and the children. So these things are, you know, it's just a tremendous time of possibility. And all we need to do is do what Mike just said, which is push forward and keep talking about the things that we want, and not to see anything as impossible for us to do or to get done. Even if we are compromising on certain things, which we always have to do anyways. The 24/7 idea is just in response to the frustration of emergency services and law enforcement to have some place to bring people to begin the process of care. People are floating around on the streets, and we're having to deal with that in all the ways that we do. So why not get what we really need to complete the system, to fill in all the gaps. So I am grateful to be able to work with you all. And I know how impassioned you all are too. I'm just louder about it, but I feel your support, and I know that these things are happening because we are talking together and working together, and for no other reason than that. There's no way as an individual you can get this done, but as a group and as team members, we're doing it.
Thanks, Arlene. Dan?
Hey Barry, do you have a quorum right now?
I think
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Thanks, Dan.
Do you have a quorum because of me?
I don't
No,
know.
we've had some other folks join.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm on vacation with my family and I just wanted to hop on to see if we needed a quorum, if we needed to vote on anything.
Oh, no, but thank you for thinking of us.
Dan.
For that, Dan. That's awesome.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Yeah, we'll do. We're just about wrapped up, actually. So,
Okay, all right, take care. We'll see you.
Yep.
Bye.
Now there's dedication of the cause on vacation. I love it.
yeah.
See you guys.
Yep. See, Arlene, that points out just exactly what you just said.
Oh, it's exactly right. Yeah.
Anything else for the good of the order? I know Perry and I would probably like to get a sandwich. We have a meeting in a half hour, so that's another hour and a half meeting. So response systems division. Anyway, do we have anyone in the public that would like to speak to us today, Jill?
Thank you. Yes, we have a couple of attendees. If you'd like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand now. And we have one person who would like to speak. Go ahead, Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know I was here and it's been a great meeting. I've really enjoyed it, the whole thing. It's just been so fruitful, and I'm especially encouraged. I really enjoyed just watching the whole process of the self-examination about your makeup, and this whole thing, the whole meeting was just so right on. So yeah, thanks for everybody being here and caring so much. That's it. Have a great day.
Well, thank you so much, Kristen. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, Kristen. If anyone else would like to speak, please virtually raise your hand now. And no hands are raised. Barry and Stephen, if you can stay behind to discuss pyramid for a minute, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do.
Did you want to adjourn the meeting, Barry?
We are adjourned. Sorry.